You are listening to Drive here on Eastside Radio. And in the studio, in real life, I have two wonderful guests with me. I'm joined by Daniel Press and Belinda Yee. Thanks so much for joining us on Drive today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
In unison. So you are both artists and you both also run, or a few of you run, a space called Draw Space in Enmore, which is an artist-run initiative gallery space. Is that the correct term? How would you define Draw Space?
I think in very simple terms, it's a home for contemporary drawing in Sydney.
Yeah, so we opened this year and we're about 6 months old. We're on Enmore Road. So we're focused on drawing. So we're looking at experimental drawing practices.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you talk about experimental drawing, because when I had a look online and even your practices, it is pushing the boundaries of what people traditionally think of as drawing. You know, we're probably used to pen and paper and pencils and crayons as we're kids and we're exploring, and no one actually thinks that there's other ways to draw. So what kind of, art are we talking about when we are pushing that boundary?
So, we have a lot of, just to pull that back one step, we do have a lot of traditional drawing. We have a lot of pen on paper, texture. We've had shows around texture. We've had a lot of charcoal work. We have a graphite show coming up. So there's a lot of more what you would traditionally think of as drawing happening. But also we have more kind of experimental work coming through. So last year we had a sound performance, and the artists approached that as an auditory trajectory, if you like, as a kind of narrative in time, which is, abstractly really like taking drawing right out to the edge there. But that's fine. Like it's a very loose definition of drawing, and so we're open to experimenting with all sorts of things.
We've had percussionists. Soon we'll be having a guitarist come in and help with a drawing performance. So all kinds of different artists doing very different things.
Well, then, I mean, how is that drawing then? I mean, how are you, as you're kind of curating these shows and exhibitions, are you going, that sounds like it'll fit in here in this drawing space? How then are you talking about drawing?
So we have 7 people on the board, and all of them have drawing practices and have a degree level or advanced level degree in drawing. So we have kind of been thinking about it for a long time, probably more than the average punter. But with this thing with guitars and double bass and percussion, etc. So this is an ongoing stream of performances that we're having, combining drawing and music. So the next one up is Jodie Graham and Mark Coven, and he plays double bass and she draws simultaneously, and it's kind of a dance between them. So his work affects her and her work affects him, and she even makes the implements that he uses to play his double bass with. So it's playing with, and look over a number of events we're looking at how music and drawing go together.
That's quite beautiful. So it's Mark using notes, as well as pen and paper and other forms. And Daniel, I mean, you have an interesting practice. Is that around drawing? I mean, would you define yourself?
So I'm probably the only person in this group that I wouldn't consider myself a drawer.
We do. We consider you.
I consider myself a sculptor, but one of the prompts I was given was a group show called Fabrication, and it's actually looking at something more closely related to my practice, which is 3D scanning and 3D printing, and looking at an expanded understanding of digital fabrication through drawing terminology, so things such as line, depth, layering and sketching. So I'm co-curating this exhibition with another PhD candidate, Sarah Adaus, and we're just looking at the boundaries between man and machine and where that lies. So there's themes of the false, things like the deceptive, trickery, imagined fantasies, and looking at kind of the fact that you can fabricate any object around the world. How does that actually become a prompt to then produce drawings?
I mean, when you think about 3D printing, that is essentially the 2D form, a digital sketch or line art on a computer, which is then translated and then physically comes alive in this 3D format. So do you start with drawing it, I'm guessing, on in a digital format and then printing it in using 3D printing?
Well, it's mark making in a sense, but it's more capturing, I guess, a map when you're using photogrammetry or 3D scanning of an object that then gets translated. And it's in that translation, I think, that more of a close relation to drawing comes through. So as ceramics as a 3D printing practice has become much more larger of a thing, there's been more of a man-to-machine interaction that comes out through the process of producing ceramic lines over and over again with the clay.
I think there's, in terms of technology and building 3D models and sketching online, digital production, that is easily understood as a form of drawing, and then having it actually be translated through a heat filament as it's laid down over a 3D object. It's quite easy for me to understand that as a drawing too, laying down a line like that.
Yeah, it's almost when we were given really bad pencils, and you would try and make an extra thick line, and you would just keep over and over and over, just sort of tracing yourself over and over to kind of build it up. And in a way, it's
that's
building
what the 3D model does.
3D models. And so a little bit about DrawSpace. It's referred to as an artist-run initiative. What does that actually mean for people out there who have maybe heard about it but don't really know how it translates?
Well, artist-runs initiatives are usually a collection of artists that have a similar vision. And what we'd encountered was there was a big demand for drawing having much more broader of recognition and institutional support in Sydney. So drawing at National Arts School is one of the most popular streams there, and practices such as painting, ceramics practice and printmaking get a lot of institutional support, and I think we wanted to give the same level of support and conceptual rigour to drawing in Sydney.
I think also there are world-renowned drawing centres in London, Paris, New York, but Australia doesn't have a drawing centre as such, and so we've kind of cheekily positioned ourselves as the centre for drawing in Australia.
I love that idea. And so with the Artist Run initiative, it is run by artists. I mean,
it's run by artists.
It says it on the tin, right? Is that different from maybe a gallery that we might see walking down Paddington, for example? Is it the same kind of commercial setup, or how does it operate?
Yeah, so because we're a not-for-profit, so we don't take any commission or fees on the sale of work. Our aim is to support contemporary drawing and to allow drawers to produce more experimental work. And because of that, it's quite different from a commercial gallery whose aims really are more the sale of contemporary art.
Makes sense. Do you still sell the art, or the artists themselves then can go off and be represented by commercial galleries?
Oh, absolutely. And we still curate into our group shows artists that are represented by commercial galleries if they fall into the what's required by the curation. So we're kind of agnostic in that way. We just bring everyone together. But yes, our aim is not to turn a profit.
Yeah, one exciting initiative that we started was the Draw Store, which Belinda here led the charge a lot for that, but it's a platform where selected artists can sell their drawings and retain 100% of the commission. So that's been going really good, and basically we've just created a hub to let collectors see what's happening with some of the most skilled and talented contemporary drawers out there.
So it's a curated list of contemporary Australian drawing, and you're essentially buying directly from the artist. There's no one in the middle, and they get 100% of the funds. So everybody come and visit Draw Store. It's on the DrawSpace website.
I love that. It's almost, I think about Bandcamp, for example, in terms of music. I don't know whether that's also 100%, but it's the idea of giving artists a platform. They get to keep the profits and whatever they sell, merchandise, etc., but it's not eating away like you would if you were part of a label or had management taking cuts.
That's right. Everything. And we've sneakily mixed amongst the various artists presenting their work there. We've mixed in some really high caliber, well-known artists like Mike Parr and Locust Jones, Wendy Sharp and Sandra Selig, and we've mixed their work. They've donated work to us for our fundraiser, so we've sneakily mixed it amongst all of the emerging artists. So if you want to find your Mike Parr, you've got to go searching and look through all of those other artists first.
And you might find something you like.
That's right.
Differently. Yeah, very cool, very cool. And it sounds like you've got a lot coming up in the next few months. As you said, you're newly launched and you're starting 2024 with a bang, it sounds like.
Yeah, our January program is jam-packed. So we've got a nighttime performance series by Lisa Jones and Julia Davis on now called Thresholds, a Silent Chorus. And it's a reflection on nature and human interaction. So there's a fig tree near St. Stephen's Anglican Church in Camperdown, and it's looking at nature as a witness. So they've taken charcoal from the tree and they've produced works through this, but it's looking at how there's this layered history of the Newtown area and using the tree as kind of a conduit for just deep time and how much the tree has actually seen and things have been imprinted on it and things such as that. So that's from the 8th to the 14th. Right after that, we have a really fun workshop, which is the 17th to the 21st. Now, Melinda Hunt, who is one of our Draw Space co-founders, is leading this, being a walking-based drawing artist. And yeah, people are welcome to come down for a stroll, and it's going to be quite fun.
So you stroll and draw? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And it's for artists where walking is an essential part of their drawing practice. So after that, we from the 22nd to the 28th, we have a volunteers show, Drawn Together, which has a range of volunteers who've come down and supported us throughout our first year as a young Ari. So we've got Kat Schultz, who's just had a baby boy, and her printmaking practice looks at memory and imprints. We have Artemisia, who has kind of gothic detail, myth and fantasy. So there's a huge range of artists coming out in that particular group show coming up.
Oh, can I just interrupt you there? But we should say thank you, because that's a show for our volunteers, and an ARI, an artist-run initiative, really doesn't work unless you have a fantastic group of volunteers to help you out. So come along and see the volunteer show. It should be awesome.
That's amazing. It sounds like there's some awesome shows coming up, and that's just January. It sounds like you've got a whole year ahead of you.
We can keep going. So I'll take.
We'll do a few more, and then we can send people to the website to find out more. Yeah.
Okay, so February, we've got a show coming from a group of Japanese artists called Rules for Drawing, and it's curated by another one of our co-founders, Lisa Pang. So it's a range of mark-making practitioners who may have a very strict approach to their art. So we got Tetsuya Chiba, who does fractals, which are basically math patterns. We have Rin Fukamoto, who does circle-based works. Susuma Takashima, his work, he never sharpens his pencil, so he'll draw and draw and draw until it's whittled to the nub. There's Kai Koyama, who draws lines that he doesn't see with carbon paper, so it's blind drawing. And we got Kanai Toyama, who makes marks with one dip of a paintbrush. So we'll dip once and then put the work on. So it's a testament to the international collaborations that are being enacted by Lisa, and it's just a very awesome show that's coming to Draw Space.
Yeah, that's really cool. So sounds like there's some cross-cultural communication and exploration of the art happening there, which is really interesting. And I love that philosophy, the entire show there, some of those really interesting philosophies of running out, drawing until you run out of ink and not seeing what you're creating. Definitely, it sounds like it's more about the journey of creating rather than necessarily focusing on that sort of end result, that line that you've made. It's like, what happens if you just keep going, just keep expressing.
You sound just like a drawer.
I am. I do have a background in art, so I will confess I understand what it's like. Well, look, it's so lovely to have you here in the studio, and really appreciate your time today talking about Draw Space, talking about some of these really interesting artists coming up. And I think you may become the foremost contemporary space for drawing in Australia. As you said, we don't necessarily have one, so it's probably about time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. We were talking to Daniel Press and Belinda Yee from Draw Space, artist-run initiative based in Enmore. They've got some amazing shows coming up